The severe weather system impacting the northeast of NSW is moving south, bringing heightened flood risk to the mid-north coast. Key points. The flood threat heightens for mid-north coast as the weather system tracks south. The flood threat heightens for mid-north coast as the weather system tracks south. An evacuation warning is issued for low-lying areas of East Bellingen, and a major road is cut in both directions between Sola and Dorrigo Mountain. An evacuation warning is issued for low-lying areas of East Bellingen, and a major road is cut in both directions between Sola and Dorrigo Mountain. The flood peak for Lismore is revised down to more than 2 meters below the town's levee. An evacuation warning has been issued for low-lying areas in East Bellingen, with major flooding possible along the Bellingen and Olara rivers. The SES is advising residents to act now to prepare for the impacts of possible flooding, particularly in Deerpell Street, Cahill Street, and Mill Street. Residents there have been told to monitor the situation and be prepared to evacuate when instructed to do so. Waterfall Way, a major road linking the Coffs Coast to Armadale, has been closed in both directions between Sola and Dorrigo Mountain after a landslide occurred during heavy rain. The Bureau of Meteorology is predicting rainfall overnight and tomorrow could bring flash flooding, riverine flooding, and strong winds to communities including Coffs Harbour, Urunga, Maxville, Bellingen, Sola, and towns along the lower Macleay River. Hugh McDowell from the BOM said falls may increase across the Coffs Coast and further south to the Port Macquarie area tomorrow. Rainfall totals could build up to 200 millimeters. Isolated totals of perhaps 300 millimeters by the end of tomorrow in parts of the mid-north coast, Mr. McDowell said. Earlier on Tuesday, the State Emergency Service issued a flood evacuation warning for communities along the lower Macleay River. Dave Rankin from the SES said residents who regularly became isolated by flooding should stock up on supplies or consider relocating to a safer place. If you were flooded in the most recent deluges at the end of February, then there is every chance of isolation and flooding again. Stock up on provisions and medicines and all the sorts of things you might need for a few days' isolation. Mid-north coast braces for heavy rainfall. Minor flooding is occurring at Glenree and Coots Crossing on the banks of the Olara River. The BOM predicts moderate flooding is likely in those areas tomorrow. Locals in Glenree are concerned the town will be cut off by floodwaters and experience power outages. The co-owner of the town's bakery, Lee Goldsmith, said she kept her children at home from daycare today due to fears they would be separated. If I took them to daycare, I can't guarantee I'd pick them up tonight. I could get cut off from Karamba where they go, she said. Glenree business owner Lee Goldsmith is preparing for the possibility the town will become isolated by floodwaters. Ms. Goldsmith said she expected the bakery to sell out given the concerns of the community regarding isolation. If the floods 3 weeks ago were anything to go by, we sold out of everything by 9 o'clock, she said. We've got extra bread in the oven now and extra pies for the additional people around here like the SES. The Wilsons River is now predicted to peak below the top of the levee. Lismore CBD evacuation order lifted. Current evacuation orders: North Lismore, North Lismore, South Lismore, South Lismore, Karaki Riverside Caravan Park, Karaki Riverside Caravan Park, Tumbulgum and surrounds, Tumbulgum and surrounds, Billinudgel, low-lying areas, Billinudgel, low-lying areas, Mullumbimby, low-lying parts and CBD, Mullumbimby, low-lying parts and CBD, Kyogle, low-lying parts. Earlier, people in several Northern Rivers towns were told to evacuate amid a renewed flood threat. But there has been some good news for Lismore, with the expected flood peak now lower than initially predicted. The Wilsons River broke its banks on Tuesday morning, with the BOM predicting the river would reach a peak of 8.4 m at Lismore at 8 p.m, below the town's 10.6 m levee. While the levee is designed to protect the town's CBD, North and South Lismore will remain unprotected. The SES said people could now return with caution to Lismore's CBD, Lismore Basin, and low-lying areas of East Lismore and Gerrards Hill, but an evacuation order remained for North and South Lismore. Lismore CBD is still without power and mostly empty after a flood tore through a month ago. Evacuation orders have also lifted in Mullumbimby and Bullinagil in the state's far north, but remain for residents in Kyogle and Tumbulgum. A major flood warning remains for the Richmond River at Karaki and Bungawalbin on Wednesday. North of the border with Queensland, the Gold Coast contended with flash flooding as heavy rain battered the region. M to mute, left and right arrows to seek, up and down arrows for volume. Watch 19 seconds 19s rubbish from last month's flood washed away in Lismore. Defence Force ready to help. The SES said it was working with the Australian Defence Force to combat the latest flood crisis, and was ready to support flood rescues if it was safe to do so. Says Deputy Commissioner Daniel Austin said ADF aircraft had been positioned along the east coast for rescue and supply missions. We need to be aware though, those aircraft sometimes are subject to significant weather conditions, which has at times seen them unable to fly and unable to operate, he said. So that highlights to the community how dangerous some of these conditions can be. There is still rubbish from the flood 1 month ago that hasn't been collected. Quick summary: Wilson's River moderate to major flooding possible with river levels at Lismore reaching about 9.7 m on Tuesday evening. Richmond River levels are expected to reach major flood levels of 5.7 m at Karaki and 5 m at Bungawalbin on Wednesday. Naran River major flooding near 3.95 m at New Angledul No. 2 on Tuesday. Bellingen River major flooding is possible at Thora and Bellingen during Wednesday. Local News Direct ABC North Coast will deliver a wrap of the week's news, stories and photos every Friday. To stay connected. Loading.